everyone, my name is Sridhari Iyer. I'll be talking about the science behind astrology. Here I'm not going to discuss anything about the effects of planets on our life, something like if Rahu is in your 8th house, you're going to be a sociopath, and if Moon is in your 1st house, this is how your life is going to turn out. We are not going to talk about any of the interpretations or effects. This video is purely to discuss about what is astrology, how these planets and stars which are light years away are creating a difference in our life, or why should they even affect us. So that's the theme of this video. So let's start. Okay, so first question, what is astrology? Astrology, as we all know, it's just a study based on the placement of these planets and stars. We are making some kind of interpretations in our life. For example, if Scorpio is in, if Saturn is in Scorpio, if Jupiter is in Leo, then this is the effect on my life. The most common thing is if Saturn is in your 7th house, you will get married very late. So these are some kind of predictions or rather interpretations or meanings that are derived from the placement of these planets. That's the science of astrology. So now we'll see in this video why or how have these interpretations come into existence. Is this just a superstition, or is there really some meaning or some kind of scientific reality to this? Okay, so now we know what is astrology, and we'll start with the very basic concept of what are constellations. Okay, so if you look at the sky in the night, we see millions of stars in the sky. Now at the time that a star takes or the light from the star takes to reach Earth is millions of light years. So the closest star that we have is Alpha Centauri, which is 4 light years away. That means the star which I see right now was actually there 4 years ago. So its light took 4 years to travel from that position to Earth. Now that's the closest star. So the other stars are many more light years away. So we are looking at a very prehistoric data. When you look at the sky, it's not the actual current position of these stars that we are looking at. It's the time that it was by till the time the light has reached Earth. So do these old prehistoric positions of stars make any sense in my life today? No, they don't. Okay, so what is astrology then? Astrology is basically the planets sitting in certain constellations. So I am going to say Saturn is right now located in Sagittarius. That means Sagittarius is a constellation of stars somewhere in the sky, and Saturn has moved into that position. Saturn is a planet. Now planets are revolving around the sun, so all of them are going to take up a certain place. So again, the constellation Sagittarius was there 1,000,000 years ago because its light has taken 1,000,000 years to travel Earth. So Saturn has moved into that place. Does that mean Saturn has moved into Sagittarius? No. Okay, so to understand this concept, we will take a very simple example today. You ask me, where are you? So I am supposed to tell you where exactly I am. Now for that, if I know your location, I can give you an exact route saying I am 32 degrees north, 25 degrees east, 350 kilometers away from you right now. So I know your position, I know my position, and I have calculated an exact angle and the distance, and I'm telling you, so this is the exact place where I am right now in. So will you be able to understand it easily? Yes, after a certain number of calculations and exact map and angle, you will be able to locate me. But is it easier for your brain to understand where I am right now? No. So if I just tell you something like I am in Andheri, I am in Mumbai. So this word Andheri strikes immediately a trigger in your head. Okay, this is where she is. It doesn't really matter what angle I am in or how many kilometers away from you. You know exactly where I am. So this is what we are using the stars or the sky as a map to say where these planets are right now. It actually the effect of Saturn on Earth at degrees 32 and 3.5 million, not million light years, it's about 222 million kilometers away, Saturn. So I will say right now it is 210 kilometers away and at an angle of 32 degrees. So this distance and this angle has a certain amount of magnetic field, the amount of magnetic influence on Earth is slightly different when the Saturn is at 60 degrees and 222 kilometers away from Earth. So there is a slight difference in the amount of magnetic energy of Saturn that is there on Earth. So this will be very difficult for astrologers to comprehend or rather make interpretations. So if I just give you an example, instead of saying Saturn is at 32 degrees and 222 kilometers away, I can give you a place saying Saturn is in Sagittarius, Saturn is in Leo. So this makes life easier. So how are these constellations made? It's just a map of whatever million light years ago we are seeing the map, but the map doesn't change that frequently, or at least in our 100 years or 150 years of lifetime, we are not going to see this much changes in the sky. Yes, the changes are very, very minimal, hardly noticeable. So we can use those stars as a map. Okay, how is it done? We have made the sun as the center of our universe. So from the sun, we have broken down the entire sky into 360 degrees. So each constellation, we have made it into 12 constellations. So the 360 degrees is equally divided into 12 parts, and each constellation occupies 30 degrees. So how does this work? Any number of all the stars that are there in this 30-degree range, we have given it a name, Aries. So we have, for our easier understanding, we give a shape to map these stars together, we give a name to it, and we call this slot as Aries. Now when a planet is traveling in this range, we will say that this planet is in Aries. Now we don't have to really remember that from Earth it is 60 degrees angle and 200 million kilometers away. We don't have to remember these numbers. We just have to understand that Saturn is in Aries or Saturn is in Sagittarius. That's the simplest way of understanding where the planets are right now. Now if you look at the sun and the planets that are revolving around it, they are all in elliptical orbits, and none of the orbits are actually having an epicenter or something like all the planets are in equal orbits, or the orbits are in equal same shape or size, or no, they are all at different angles. Now if you look at a 3D image, this is a 2D image. So if you look at the 3D image, if I say Mercury is in this plane, Venus will be in a different plane. So the planes of each of these orbits are also different. Okay, so that makes a lot of difference when it comes to the angle and the distance we are calculating from each of these planets relatively and as well as from Earth. Okay, so why does this distance and angle make so much of difference? Okay, each of these planets are rotating in its own axis, as well as they have a kind of circular movement around the sun. And it's not exactly circular, but they are revolving around the sun continuously. Now when an object is rotating on its own axis as well as revolving, there is a huge amount of magnetic field that is generated. It carries a very huge magnetic field, and also gravity is a big constant over here. So the amount of gravity and magnetic field together influence other objects which can be influenced by magnetic field and gravitational pull. Now as a human, I am made of water and flesh, and you can see the effect of Earth's gravity on me. It is pulling me down and keeping me on my feet on Earth. I can lift my hand and leg with the amount of energy that I have. Otherwise, I am always pulled down to the gravity of Earth. So each of these planets have their own gravity and their own pull. Now if you even talk to a fisherman, he can look at the moon and tell you today we have a high tide or a low tide. Because yes, tidal force is created by the gravitation of the moon. The moon comes closer, we have a high tide, and the other side of the earth experiences a low tide. So this is a common experience by even the simple people living with nature have not just the knowledge but the experience also of dealing with this. So each of these planets have a certain amount of gravity as well as certain amount of magnetic field. Now this varies depending on the angle at which they are in and the distance at which they are placed at. So that creates a huge difference. Now the next basic question that you will ask is, how does Saturn in Sagittarius affect me and not her or not him? Or why is the effect of Saturn in Sagittarius a different experience for me and different experience for the other person? Yes, this is a very valid question, and this is where the actual astrology comes into picture. Each of us, you will know that when you go to an astrologer to read your chart, what's the first thing that your astrologer asks? Date of birth, time and place. These are three things that they use for generating your map. Now, how does this work? So, if you look at me as a person, I am a human being. I am made with water and flesh and carbons and all that. Now, there is a certain, all these cells in my body are also a kind of a magnetic, they also have a kind of magnetic energy in me. Now, how does this magnetic energy differ from me and her or you? When we are born, we are still. We do not have any kind of energy within us. The energy inside the womb is the energy created by the mother to the fetus. There is nothing called the child on its own. The moment the child comes out into the world, it takes its first breath in. Now, when it takes the first breath in, there is a kind of charge or there is a kind of energy which is getting absorbed from the nature, from the universe into the child at that moment. So what it captures is current position of all the Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, wherever all these planets are right now placed, at whatever distances, at whatever angles they are placed. There is the amount of energy, the magnetic fields generated by each of these planets currently on Earth is being absorbed by that child. Now the child has become a transmitter of a different energy level. Another child born a few seconds later or a few hours later is going to absorb a different magnetic field or a different energy of the universe in the first breath. So my first breath has made me absorb the universe as it is right now and made me another magnetic field or another transmitter of the magnetic field. I am also a receiver, I am also a transmitter. I receive energy from the universe, I transmit energy back to the universe. So the way I receive energy is going to be different from the way the another person receives energy from the universe. So this person who is born a few hours later receive or has become a different transmitter, and I have become a different transmitter because the placement or the kind of energy that was there in the universe when I absorbed my first breath was totally different from the energy or the magnetic fields and absorbed by the other child born a few hours later. Now again, place is a very important thing because if I'm, let's say, born in India and you're born in America, so for the earth, if I'm born in India, I'm facing this side, and if you're born in America, you're facing the other side. It may be the same time, the same, everything else is the same, but the amount of magnetic energy received by a planet sitting over here to a person born in America will be slightly different from the magnetic field absorbed by the child born in India, because these are totally different, the opposite sides. There is a kind of energy which the earth itself will absorb. So the amount of energy that this child over here in the other side of the planet is going to experience a different amount of energy or different kind of magnetic field from the same planet sitting over here. I hope I'm making some sense. Okay, so how is the birth chart created? It's very simple. You just calculate the, let's say right now, if Earth is in this place, I will say that Earth, or rather Sun is in Scorpio. We always calculate it that way. Now if I say the Moon is in this position, it's circling around the Earth. Now if I look at the Moon, it need not be in Scorpio, it's not in Scorpio. So if I look at this person in this, let's say the child is born in this place, India for now. Okay, India is facing in this direction, America is facing in this direction. Now this child is facing the Moon, and the Moon is almost in the end of Aquarius. It's going to Pisces. So for this child who is born over here will be said as the Moon is in Aquarius. Now if you calculate the degrees, it's the end of Aquarius. Now let's say this is Venus over here. So Venus is in this orbit. Now for this child, when it is looking at Venus, it's going to be in Taurus. If I look at, let's say Saturn is in this position right now when the child was born. So this child is going to be looking at Saturn, like this. So Saturn is in Libra, Moon is in Aquarius, Venus is in Taurus. So this is how the birth chart or the horoscope chart is being devised for the child who is born right now in a particular place. Now if the same child, if another child is born in this place, now it will also look at the Moon, but in a slightly different angle. This child will look at Venus in a slightly different angle. This child will look at Saturn in a slightly different angle. The angle has changed. The viewing angle has changed. So these people are going to be looking at the same planets placed at the same positions but in a different angle. So the houses are going to change, or the zodiacs are going to change. So for the child over here, I'll say the Moon is in Aquarius, but the same child over here at the same time is going to say Moon is in Pisces. Same thing for Venus. Venus, they'll say that it's in Taurus or it's in Aries. If this child will say it's in Taurus, this child will say it's in Aries. Now Saturn is very far from Earth, so that's the reason both of them are seeing it in Libra. It's very rare that children born at the same time at different places on Earth will see the farther planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Uranus to be in different houses, because they are very far. The relative distance or the relative movement will not make too much of a difference. Okay, so this was a basic video on what is astrology and how is a birth horoscope made and how are these planets making a difference. So that's the magnetic field, which has a different effect on each and every person based on the birth time. Now the moment I take the first breath in, I am created. I am created as an image of the universe right now. So the right now universe that I am created in can be seen by an astrologer by making a chart, or he is just going to map these planets in the various houses and say this is who I am. Okay, so next is how the events in my life are getting predicted. Now for this child, let's say Venus is at this degrees, Moon is at this place, Saturn is at this place. Now obviously the planets are going to be continuously changing. Now for the same child, when the Saturn goes over here, now the Saturn has moved a little. The angle and distance for this child from Saturn has changed. So the amount of magnetic field that this child has experienced during birth will differ a little when the Saturn moves ahead a little. So the magnetic field, now this child is a receptor of this universe, and the receptor is going to receive a different signal or different amount of magnetic field when the Saturn is in a slightly different angle. Same thing when Saturn has moved into this place, the angle and the distance of Saturn on this child is going to make a difference. So I'll conclude this particular video with this thought, and I will be sure soon making another video based on the dasha system and how it is derived and how these planets are ruling, or rather how the dasha system rules, or you can predict events using the dasha system in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my video, please comment on it. I'm really waiting to hear your comments, and please do subscribe so that you will get notified whenever I post the next one. Thank you.